Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy Friday, or maybe it's happy Saturday, wherever you are. This is USA Global TV and Radio. Our show today is Authentic Achievements, and we're going to be talking about that dreaded word that people get so upset about. The word is change. And there's certain times during the year when we start to reflect on where have we been, where are we going, how much have we accomplished, how far back are we, how far ahead are we, what should we do? Oh my gosh, so many questions. I'm Dr. Jacalyn KERBECK. I'm the president, founder, and chief listening officer here at our network. And our show is starring Kim-Adele Randall, who is joining us from London. Let's welcome her now. Hi there.
Hi, Dr. Jacqueline. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Albeit time just is flying, isn't it? I mean, can you believe that we're in October?
I really can't. And, you know, speaking about change, there's a lot of change going on everywhere. I'm about to go back to Florida, which is a huge change. And I've got a 17-hour production the day before for World Jenny's Day.
Oh.
So, when I think about change, I'm like, but it's all good. It's just how you look at things, right?
Yeah, it is. But it can be so complicated, isn't it? And the reason it is because we get comfortable where we are. You know, one of the things that I always get people to do, because it really helps you understand change. So if you're listening or watching us now, do me a favor and just fold your arms, however you normally do it. And once you've done that, unfold them for me and fold them the other way. And I've done this with organizations all over the world as part of speeches, because it helps people to go, how did it feel? Were you able to do it? And you'd be amazed. You know, some people can do it quite easily. Some people literally have to look down at their hands to see how to make the move in the opposite direction. But all of them manage it in the end. And it's just to help demonstrate that we can do change. It's just going to feel a little bit awkward, a little bit uncomfortable, and we're going to have to think about it to make it happen.
Absolutely. You know, I did the exercises, you were talking about it, and it reminded me of yoga, for example. Do you ever practice yoga?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know, we're so used to doing things where you put one hand on top of the other. And when you do it the other way, it feels so different. And people typically don't want to do that switch. And even though the yoga instructor will say, put the other hand on top, you can, you know, it's like, but it feels so much better the other way, right?
It does. We used to, I had a client of mine who once got me to swap the arm that my watch was on. And you had to keep it on the other arm until you didn't look at the wrong arm first. So however long that took, till you didn't look at the wrong arm first, you had to swap it, because that was how long you take to accept a change. But then the really annoying thing about that particular exercise is you've then got to decide whether or not you actually want it to go back to the arm that you used to. If you have, you're going to have to go through it in reverse, because you're now used to wearing it on the wrong hand. But it's those parts that say we like doing it the way that we do it, because we know that we can do it that way. We know that we can be successful. And as human beings, the thing we fear most is failure, is getting it wrong, is not being able to do something. And that's one of the things that really holds us back from making a change. And yet the thing that we know is that fear is imagined. It hasn't happened yet. So we've had to imagine it in our brain. But the same is also true of hope. Hope hasn't happened yet. We have to imagine it, but we're imagining it in exactly the same brain. So why do we choose to give more credence to the fact that we're likely to fail than we do to the fact that we're likely to succeed? Because neither one of them was created in any place other than our own brain.
So true. I love that. That's a really good point. Yesterday, we interviewed someone, we were talking about fitness, wellness, and health, and how even though they seem like three pillars, they all are connected. And our guest was describing the fact that people look for January 1st as that day where, okay, now I'm going to do something differently. And I think he said like 90 some percent of people actually fail and it doesn't actually work. So we need to get started in October, he mentioned. So right now, and you mentioned that backstage about October, this is the time to look at what is it that we can do differently. And we were just talking about yoga. One thing that comes to mind is tree pose, for example. And sometimes we're more balanced on one side than the other. Sometimes one leg is sticking out, one knee is sticking out more than the other. And so I started working on the things that didn't seem like they were working very well. Like I'm right-handed, but I'll write with my left hand just to do it. And I started wearing my watch on my other arm. And so because I'm very curious about why am I so likely to do better on this side than the other side. And I sometimes will fall or fail or it hurts or I have to grab my foot and pull it up to my hip bone. But yet other times, I say to myself, I don't really have the time to actually do this. So, I got to get going. We have to do it. We've got a comment, by the way, from Yvette Filbert. Good afternoon to you from London. Hello, Yvette. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Yvette.
Nice to have you. So what about you, Kim-Adele? What are some things that you're really aware of in your own body or in your own behavior that you typically will push yourself to the other side to break through, or you'll say, nah, I'm just going to stay where I am with this behavior?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dr. Jacqueline, because I've spent nearly 20 years doing transformational change for organizations, but you have to go through the change yourself. And it's not always easy. It's not always nice. There are those days where you're like, really? No, it's not just like bury my head under the duvet and not have the difficult conversation, not have to push myself to do the thing that I don't want to do in that moment. But actually what I've learned is that if I give myself a little reward, and it's amazing how easy it is for me to make the move. I think I'm far too like my little girl. I mean, what that little girl won't do for a sticker is nobody's business, just because she's able to walk around all day then telling everybody how great she's been. And I think clearly we've got a similar psyche. So I'll reward myself with things I enjoy doing at the end of the day. But the one thing that I've learned is to do the thing that I don't want to do first. I guess it was Brian Tracy's book, isn't it? Eat the Frog. It's like, do it first, because if not, you spend all day dreading it. You spend all day making it significantly worse than it actually is. Whereas if you do it first, it isn't going to be any nicer or any less pleasant, but you're not going to have wasted all of that time, all of that energy, all of that brain power and thinking about putting it off. Which just actually means that you get to move on to the things that you want to enjoy most. And also practice some self-care. There are days where really you just do need to go, I'll do it later, because right now it's okay. But I try and give myself that self-compassion to say, hold myself to account, push myself to do it first thing in the way, get it out of the way. If I go on holiday, I always do my exercise first thing in the morning, because then I believe that I've earned myself the right to do and eat and drink whatever I want for the rest of the day, because I've earned it. So I think it's kind of that sort of mentality, but I had to really learn that because it didn't come naturally to me.
I love what you're sharing. I totally agree. We also have another comment from Yvette. Thank you, Yvette, for engaging with us. I always give myself a treat on the second Sunday of each month. Well, good for you. We'd love to hear what it is if you want to share. So, yeah, that's fantastic. So just a quick story. I'm obsessed with working out and pushing myself to new limits. And the other day, I got a phone call from an unknown number, and I thought, I'm not going to answer this, but I answered the call, and it turns out it was someone calling about the Crohn's colitis support group, which they were interested in information, and I actually facilitate a group. So anyway, it turns out this person is a doctor, and we start talking, and I told her that I have ulcerative colitis, and then I'm back in a flare, and I wonder if it has anything to do with this 21-minute straight arm plank that I did because the next day I wasn't feeling well. So she said to me, and this is why I bring it up, she said, "Oh, she said, you're 59, you're too old to be doing things like that." She said, "You should start, doing workouts that are more in alignment with your age." And I said, "No, no, no, that's not who I am." And she said, "Well, you can really hurt yourself." And I said, "But I always want to push myself, because once we stop pushing ourselves, we just become lackadaisical." And she had this whole conversation with me. She's like, "Absolutely not." So anyway, long story short, I went to the gym and I thought about her, and I picked up this 15-pound ball. I used to have 25, but at the gym it's 15. And I started doing ball slams where you take the ball and you like as hard as you can. And then, so I did 25 of them, and then I jumped rope for 100. And I thought, yeah, see, but meanwhile, she wasn't there. It was just me actually doing it. I guess saying to myself, you know what, I'm not too old because I can still do it. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get injured, but that's what happens. People put us in a box. And I'm not judging this person, I'm just saying, but people put us in a box and tell us, you shouldn't do that. You can't do that. You look stupid doing that. You make a fool of yourself doing that. And then we don't do it anymore. And then we just, I feel like, go backwards.
Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, I love that. My friend bought me a slam ball for my birthday this year, and it's a great way, isn't it, of getting rid of that pent up frustration after a day. But we do, I think, we put people in boxes, and actually that's usually because we're projecting out our own concern, our own fear at the thing that we're most nervous about. But who does determine what other people can do? Who determines what we can do? Us. But very often, instead of it being us that determines what we do, we borrow everybody else's belief and we go, "Oh yeah, no, you're right, I probably shouldn't do that. Yeah, I am actually too old to do that. No, I probably should go and do some other activity instead." And yet, why can't you? My aunt, bless her, was, I think, 79 when she became the pin-up poster girl for the gym that she went to. Because she used to go in every day. I mean, she's 90 now, and she still exercises, but not to this, not to the same level. But she was determined. She was going to choose what she wanted to do, and why not? It's her life. She gets to live it how she wants to, as long as she's not harming other people. Then, really, we should embrace everybody's opportunity to choose, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. What a great story. I love hearing that, because that inspires all of us to push ourselves. We've had a physician on here. He's a triathlete. I think he's 85. He's still running and going out there and doing it, because what happens is once we give up, our body starts to slide backwards, and so does our mind.
Yeah.
And then to actually get out of that as we age is so much more difficult. We've got more comments from Yvette. Thank you, Yvette. Yvette likes to go waltzing. She actually goes waltzing. Oh, I love that. Da, 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 da. And a follow-up comment, which is, never limit yourself according to other people's perception of you. I like that a lot. And you know what, Yvette, that comment tied in with Kim-Adele's. When I think back to this physician who happened to call me, maybe the physician doesn't work out like that. Maybe the physician's not working out at all. And maybe that kind of was a threat. I'm not really sure. Yeah. But it's not for us to wonder. But when I think about your little girl, she's curious. She wants to do as many things as she can until you or somebody else tells her, you shouldn't be doing that. Go to your room. But as we get older, that's what happens. We go to our room and we don't do it.
Oh yeah, because when we're children, we've got unstoppable belief. We believe we can do anything. We want to be just like you. So again, with our parents, where we kind of look at them and go, "Well, you can do it. I want to do it." And I kind of believe I can, because they think they are us. They think they're little versions of us. If you think about it, when we, if I said tomorrow morning, when you get up, you're going to have to learn how to walk or talk or run or jump or skip, you would be overwhelmed. We would all be overwhelmed. And yet the reality is, at our most vulnerable, we did it. We learn how to do these things. So why is that? Why, when we now, if you look at that tiny little person, you go, "Oh, they're so vulnerable. We're going to want to wrap them up and keep them safe." And yet they learned to do something that we would find overwhelming today. And that's because of two things, I believe. The first, and well, actually both of them are belief, but the first is their own belief. So they believe they can because they think they're just like us, and they are. And the second is, I've yet to see a child learning to walk that doesn't have at least one adult nearby going, "You've got this, you're so close, come on." We quite literally give them our belief and add it to their own. And yet we stop doing that when they get older. We start to give them limiting beliefs instead of unlimiting beliefs. And we carry it on into our future. And I would love if people would learn, and I try really hard with my little girl, when I find myself in that limiting belief, in that, oh no, be careful. She went the other day, she's not quite 6, and she went for her first ever gymnastics trial. And I was like, oh, they'll probably, they'll get her to do a forward roll or something, or some jumping. So imagine when I see my little girl being put on the tallest of the uneven bars during her first lesson, and then going over the top and landing. She had a whale of a time. I nearly had a heart attack because in that moment I was like, oh my goodness, no, be careful. But I realized that was my limiting belief. Because there's a story, so forgive me for going on a little bit, but there was a story where there was 2 cousins and they were climbing a tree, and all of a sudden there was really, really heavy wind, and the father of the boy that was at the highest said, hold on, and the father of the boy that was halfway up said, be careful, don't fall. And it was the child that was lower down that fell. And that's because psychologically, we have to imagine what it is you're telling us to make sense of it. So because the guy said, hold on, the boy imagined what it'd be like to hold on and then held on. Because the boy lower down had been told, be careful, don't fall, he had to imagine falling, and therefore he did.
Another great example. And I'm imagining you watching this gymnastics performance and thinking, I know what could happen if she falls or if she misses, and she's thinking, wow, this is so exciting. This is so much fun. Not thinking about the fear factor of it. But you're right that it's that fear factor of what could happen that keeps us back. We've got another comment from Yvette. My mom is 91 next month, and she's still able to walk faster than me, and she's able to touch her toes.
Amazing.
Thanks for sharing that. So inspirational.
It is, because it's amazing what people, what people can do, isn't it? And I think, I look at not just my little girl, but children everywhere, and think, they are such a great lesson for us all, because they do start with that unstoppable belief. They believe that they're invincible, and they don't care if they fall over and look silly. They care if they fall over and hurt themselves, but how many of them then immediately get up after they finish crying and go and do the exact same thing because they're still determined that they're going to achieve it? And I think there's an inner child in all of us. If we could just tap into that inner child's belief instead of squashing it down with our learned adult concern, our learned adult frustrations, then you've got to get the boundaries, haven't you? We want to still be able to keep ourselves safe, but how do we get back to a place where we take risk, calculated risk, but we take risk and we trust that actually we'll get there?
Yep, I totally agree with you. I'm just thinking to myself, I saw a little girl with her mother, and they had one of these, I don't know what it's called. There's handles, and you use one foot and you push yourself. It's not a skateboard. It's something like that. Thank you. That's what it is. And she had her little helmet on, and I don't have any children, but I saw them across the street, and I thought, oh my, that looks dangerous. The little girl's going so fast. What if she falls? And the next thing you know, she falls, and she's screaming and crying. And so I went over to see if I could help. And she's got these little cuts on her, bless her, the little thing. And so she kept screaming and crying, and they ended up going back home. I carried the scooter for them. And I thought to myself, I wonder what the lesson was in this. And then I said to myself, I guess the lesson was she fell, but she's okay. And she'll probably go out on that scooter again. Whereas as an adult, you might say to yourself, I don't think I'm going to go out there again. That's
that's it. I don't want to do that. I mean, we've all done that piece where, I remember once really, really badly slipping on some ice. And I immediately tried to get up because I was mortified. I was desperately trying to go, hoping nobody'd seen me. And and we kind of do that, whereas children sleep on ice all of the time. And yes, they might, like, you know, if they hurt themselves, they want you to help, but then they're straight out doing exactly the same thing. And you think, well, hold on, why don't we get a little bit more comfortable with the fact that, yeah, I did look a bit embarrassing, you know, slumped out on the floor. I remember another time, I'm going to come across as the clumsiest woman in the history of the world, but I remember another time picking my little girl up from nursery, and she came out clutching this pile of her artwork, you know, the most precious gift that she's got. She loves doing art. And there was some ball thing on the top of it, and it rolled off the pile as I went to pick it up. So I immediately saw her little face and was like, oh, I need to collect that. So I ended up crouching down. It was a Friday night, crouching down and running to try and get this ball that was rolling away in a half, you know, in a kind of like half doubled up, and managed to knock myself out on a wooden window box that I just hadn't seen because I was focused on the floor, and ended up flat on my back, slightly unconscious in the street on a Friday night. And obviously nursery had to take me inside, and I was mortified. But you kind of look at it and go, well, I survived, and actually I managed to get the ball, and she was okay. She thought it was hilariously funny. And what was the worst that happened? Nobody did actually laugh at me. Everyone was more worried that I might be concussed. So I think we created the fear. You know, I created the fear. I would never live that down. But the reality is, it was fine. I got over it. It's okay. We talk about it now and see how hilarious it is. But at the you know, in that moment, what happened when I came to was I was like, oh my God, I've got to get up immediately because people are going to look at me and people are going to laugh. And nobody did any of those things. And the fact was, I couldn't actually get up straight away because I had knocked myself out.
Wow, what a story. I'm envisioning you lying there. And did you get the ball, by the way, or it
Yeah,
kept rolling? Yeah, you did.
Oh, yeah,
You got it.
I just got it as my head hit the corner of this wooden.
Oh.
I mean, and to be fair, Dr. Jacqueline, it's embarrassing. It's bright blue. It's a massive window box. And I'd been taking her to that nursery for 3 years. So it's not like it was new news. It's not like I'd never seen it before. It was just those moments where you're not focused on all of that's around you, focused on that one thing. And then sometimes accidents happen. But I guess for me, the lesson in that was, you know, I'm still here. I survived. It's like nobody did do any of the things that I would have been fearful of if I'd thought about what would happen if I knocked myself out on a winter box Friday night when I was getting my little girl. So I think it's those parts that go, you know, I guess the thing I've learned to ask myself is, what's the worst thing that can happen and can I live with it? And as long as the answer is yes, then I should take the risk. I should take the leap. I should make the change because I'm going to be so much happier on the other side.
Mm-hmm. What a great story. Again, you have so many wonderful stories that there are always lessons. And thank you for sharing that. Something that comes to mind for me is I'm here in New Jersey. As I mentioned, we're leaving to go to Florida, and we're on the bay. We have a beautiful view. And with Hurricane Ian, as it was coming up the coast, we actually were kind of pummeled with bad weather for about 5 days in a row. So the bay actually ended up looking like an ocean. All the wetlands out there were gone. And the water had white caps on it. And we're next to an empty lot that nobody can ever build on. And the water literally came out of the bay over the lot into the street. And our sidewalk on the side of our house was covered with water. And when I looked out there, I thought to myself, you know, this went on for 5 days. I thought to myself, what must it have been like for those people in Florida that, you know, you're in your house and the water keeps getting higher and higher. You're on your roof, maybe out there swimming. And end of the story, the reason why I bring it up is that I have a paddle board and I love to do stand-up paddling. And I have been thinking that before we leave, I would take the board out one more time. But now in my mind, I see the bay as the ocean with the white caps. And I'm actually, I know exactly what's going on. I am afraid to go out there again, because while I'm out there, it could become the ocean. And that was really, it was terrifying to look out there and see that and think maybe the house would be swept away and all the birds were gone. But I also know from an intellectual standpoint that that's ridiculous, because we're not in a storm right now. And if I were to take the board out tomorrow, I probably would be okay. But yet it's still there, that chatter, that noise.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we can't help ourselves. We don't respond to what's actually happening. We respond to what we've made it mean. And that's because our emotional brain responds 24 times faster than our thinking brain. So we think that we're thinking these thoughts, where actually we're thinking about the feeling we've created and what that generates for us. And then we can do things where we go, intellectually, I get it. I understand that it's right, but that's in my thinking brain. But my emotional brain is going to keep responding to the story that I gave it. And it's like, as human beings, we believe that we talk the truth. But the reality is we talk a truth. For everything that we think, the opposite is also true. Einstein's theory of relativity, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The same is true for everything we think. If we think, the opposite could also be true. So we have to ask ourselves those questions. Do I want to think this? Or would I rather think the opposite? Do I want to think I can't achieve, that I can't succeed, that I can't make this change? Or do I want to think that I can succeed, that I can achieve my dreams, that I can go and achieve that goal? Because whichever one we focus on is going to be the one that we get eventually. I always use the analogy now. If you ever decided you were going to go and buy a car, and the make, the model, the color, and then all of a sudden all you can see every time you go out of your house is that car. And it's not because there's more of those cars around, it's because your subconscious brain thinks it's important to you, so it filters them into view, because our subconscious brain filters out of view hundreds and hundreds of things because it doesn't think that they're useful for us.
Yes, and I think, if I may, I think that's what happened with the ball. You were so focused on the ball that everything else just disappeared. And we've got another comment from Yvette. Sometimes we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Thank you. So when I think back to the example I gave about the stand-up paddle boarding, I think to myself, well, if I don't go out on the board one more time, will that be a big deal? And in a way, it is a big deal, because I'm letting my fear get me. And then when I come back here next year, I will probably be even more afraid because I let it build up to such a high level. So I feel that it's imperative that I do go back out there again and eliminate that fear.
I agree. And you're going to be fine. But it's also okay to be fearful. But it's about, imagine how you're going to feel when you conquer the fear. So, think about, what are you going to treat yourself with when you conquer it? Because we have to celebrate the wins, because then actually that's going to be the thing that drives us on, that goes, we want more wins, because I got a celebration, whatever that celebration is. I'm going to turn the world into me and my daughter. We're all going to walk around with stickers on, because that's how we celebrate our success. But I think, if we can look at those things and go, how am I going to feel when I prove myself right, that actually, intellectually, I know I'm going to be okay. When I prove myself right, how good am I going to feel? And what am I going to do to celebrate that win? Because you're right, we put things off, and then they become much worse, because now, while we've put it off, we've given our brain space, and it loves to fill that space. So it will fill that space by going over and over again all the variations of what actually could happen. I'm sure the people listening will have had a difficult conversation that they know that they've got to have. They've got to tackle it. And we put it off a little bit, don't we? Well, I do. So you put it off and you put it off. And then when you have it, it's never as bad as you thought it was. Never. In like nearly 50 years, it's never gone as badly as I thought it would. And yet I think, well, I wasted days putting it off, worrying about it. Coming up with any reason not to do it than to actually just tackle it. Because one of two things will happen. One, you've done it now, it's over, you don't have to do it again. And two, the chances are it wasn't as bad as all of that time that you wasted imagining it, creating it, coming up with what that was going to look like.
I totally agree. Once again, I remember when my dad was alive, we would have these conversations. I think I shared this before of what could possibly happen to us that would be really bad. And we would put it on a list because whatever you have on that list is not going to happen. The things that we obsess about, it's the thing we didn't even think of that comes our way. And I like also what you said about doing what it is that you don't want to do. Do that first. That's exactly how I am. This morning, there were some like chores around the house I just didn't feel like getting to. And I said, that's it. You're going to go do them right away. And now I'm like, I don't even have to think about it because I just did it. And it's not there hovering saying, you need to do this, this, and this.
Yeah. So now you get to focus on the things you want to do, don't you? Now you've done the thing that you didn't want to do, the rest of your day is only going to get better because now you can focus on things you enjoy, things you want to do. It always reminds me, have you ever seen the Bob Newhart clip on called Stop It?
No, I don't think so.
It's hilarious. I'll have to get you the link and maybe we can put it in the show notes. But in this clip, he's playing a psychiatrist, and this woman comes in because she's afraid that she's claustrophobic. She's afraid someone's going to lock her in a box. And I don't want to spoil the clip, but it's worth watching. But basically, his message at the end of it is, kind of, has anybody ever buried you alive, locked in a box? And she's like, well, no. It's like, well, just stop it then. Why would you choose to think that? It's never happened. It's never going to happen. Just stop it. And I watch it very often because it reminds me when I get myself in that moment where my brain is taking over, just telling me all the things that I'm fearful of, just telling me all the things that could go wrong. I have to remind myself to just stop it because it's not happened yet. I've created it. I've imagined it. And therefore, I can imagine the opposite and then work out which one I want to focus on. But I highly recommend it. It's very funny.
Yeah, if you can find the clip, that would be brilliant. I loved watching Bob Newhart. It was very funny. And, you and I have discussed the fact that we've both moved many, many times. Like, we don't have to be stationary, living in the same place, doing the same thing. But for some people, getting out of your neighborhood or your community and going somewhere else is really traumatic. Even getting on a plane, flying somewhere, doing something else. So I guess the question I have for you is, what do you think really makes that difference between people who are willing to get out of their comfort zone and people who are not?
Oh, what a great question. I wonder if it's the fear that they could be wrong is greater than the fear of whatever it is that they're doing. For me personally, that was, my fear that actually, what if I've made the wrong choice? What if actually I sitting here doing nothing is worse than doing something? That allows me to kind of like move past it, to go, oh, hold on, you've just got to take that leap. But I think the only thing greater than fear is hope. And therefore I'm always hopeful that I'm wrong and the right thing will happen. And that we can get to the other side. So I wonder if for those people that do get up, that do make the change, that do push themselves to do the thing that they didn't want to, that they didn't feel comfortable with, I wonder if they are able to tap into that sense of hope more than they tap into that sense of fear.
Yeah, that's a great question. Something for us to consider. As I'm getting ready to leave here and packing up, it's just so interesting to me because we go back and forth twice a year, how much stuff we have and how much stuff I don't use. And yet I think to myself, what if I don't take this? What if I don't take that? And then the piles are getting bigger and bigger. And I'm thinking, you haven't worn that dress in like 6 years. Is it likely you will wear it? But what if I might miss out? There could be an opportunity. And that's what we do. Even when it comes to our things that we're so like holding on so dearly. And yet I think to myself about the people who just leave everything and go live on an island. They're making sandals. One of our team members, Roland Friedel, he lives a wireless life. He's driving in his RV through Europe, and he left his home, put things in storage, just left. And the reason why I bring it up is he has a saying, which is wherever you go, you take your problems with you. You're still the same person. You have to deal with things. And so I think that that is a big thing when it comes to change, whether it's the change of leaving behind material items, selling them, getting rid of them. What does it take for you to be in your authentic self, where instead of being encumbered by thoughts and things, you're able to be present and actually be curious to find out about new things instead of being, overwhelmed with the existing things?
Oh, I love that. What a great question, because it's right, isn't it? Yeah, we do. We worry if we don't take these things, if I've not packed enough stuff on holiday, what if? And I remember I've moved a lot, and I remember once having a box that I'd not opened in 12 months, I think. It was, we'd moved into the house, we'd unpacked everything else. This one box I'd not opened. So I took it to charity without opening it. And my husband was like mortified. And he was like, but what if there's something really important in it? And I was like, well, we've clearly not needed it. Whatever it was that was in there, we haven't needed it for 12 months. So we're probably not going to need it. And if we open the box, we'll convince ourselves we do need it, that we missed it. It was like, really vital that we had, that particular item. And it was really quite liberating, because you're so right, Dr. Jacqueline. Wherever we go, we take us with us. We don't escape us. So we don't escape our problems and our thoughts and our hopes and our dreams. They go wherever we go. But if we can find a way to get comfortable with that, as Yvette said, get comfortable with the uncomfortable and get less obsessed with the things, the material stuff that actually is how we're projecting out our concerns about whatever's happening inside of us.
So true. I'm in alignment with everything you're saying. I left my corporate career in 2020, as you know, and packed up my stuff, put things in boxes, left where I was, moved in to take care of my mother. And anyway, last month, I was in the garage with some family members, and there are several boxes that I never unpacked. And we really were trying to clear out the garage. So anyway, opened this one box, and there was my briefcase. The briefcase that I had used, it was a Prada, not a paid spokesperson, but black, made out of that material. I forget what that material is that those bags are made out of. But I remembered, wow, I went to this customer. I went to, all the places I had gone with the bag. And the bag was covered in mold. It had molds all over it. Even though the bag was black, you could still see there was mold on it. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, why didn't I take care of this? Why would I leave it in this box in the garage for so long? What am I going to do? And I took it out, and I thought, I became obsessed with it. I didn't even think about the thing for 2 years. And I think I got it in the 90s, by the way. So I was thinking I put it in the washing machine. And then, of course, the mold's going to be in there, and it's going to go into the water. I mean, I went through all these things. And finally I said, just throw it away. You can't give it to anyone. Let it go. But for, 45 minutes, I became consumed with it. I didn't even think about it for 2 years. And that's what we do. It's like, what am I missing out on? Nothing. I don't even need a briefcase, Kim-Adele. I'm behind this green screen.
I totally feel you. And what a great story. It got me to that moment. Like, my parents downsized this year. And they'd been in their old house for 20 odd years, and they moved to a much smaller house. And they did a great job of kind of giving some stuff up, but it was still hard. And I remember on the day that they moved in, my sister-in-law rang, and she was like, Kim, we might need your help. I was like, right, okay, why? I'm nearly there. And she said, well, we've used every cupboard in the kitchen. We've not got anywhere to put food, and we've still got about 50 boxes of kitchen stuff, and we can't get your mum over it. So I remember having to chat to her, and I was like, we're gonna, you've got 5 dinner services. We're downsizing. You can't have 5. She's like, oh, but Kim, this is the one we use when we have pasta, and then this is the one we use when we have something else. I was like, no, Mum, lovely. We're downsizing. You're gonna have to move down to just 1 dinner service. And And she was like, but what about when you all come? And I said, well, that's why you've got the really posh dinner service over there. So you can have one everyday one, you can have the posh one that's over there, but you've got nowhere to store any food. You've got to live in this house. If we don't give up some of these plates and things, then you're never going to be able to make any food to put on the plates because there's nowhere to put it. But it was that moment when actually she realized that she needed to give it up. And it's ridiculous about plates. But when she realized that actually she needed to let go, and it was because she'd got memories with some of these things. She got 3 rolling pins because one of them was her mum's, one of them was my dad's mum's, and then one of them was hers. And I was like, but you don't lose the memory, mum. Like, the memory is still there. You don't need the thing. You don't even look at the thing. But I think that's the thing we're fearful of. We don't want to give the things up because we're worried we're going to lose the memory. And so one of the things I got her to do was take, not of the plate, should be pleased to know, take photos of the things that she was no longer using, but that had been given to her by somebody that she cared for, that she'd lost. And then said, like, you've got the photo, you've got the memory, but now imagine that you get the gift of giving that, whatever it is, to charity and allow it to be a memory in somebody else's life. So yours doesn't go, but you free it up to become somebody else's memory. And isn't that a nicer way of being?
That is absolutely beautiful. I love that. And I agree with that too, to see something having another life through someone else. Yvette's got some great comments. The same can be said if people who pay for storage for years. Oh my gosh, those storage companies, they're just racking it in month after month after month. And, you know, I have to say, when I was younger, as I mentioned, I moved a lot and I would put stuff in storage. And then you go back there like, what? I don't even want this. What was I thinking when I bought this? So yeah, that was a big lesson for me, that I learned that there's no storage. There's no pay. Like, give it up, give it away. Let somebody else enjoy it. We can't carry all this stuff through our lives. It's just, and here it is, Yvette, another great comment, silent attachment. There it is. There it is. We need it to build us up, whereas in here is what we have to build up. The stuff doesn't build us up. My mom had an expression about a guy I dated, and he was not, I think it was like 5'8" or something. And she said, oh, he looks really tall when he stands on his money. And we both had a laugh about that. But that's how people are, right? They have all this stuff. And so they're big and important and powerful. And meanwhile, they spend their time worrying how they're going to keep the stuff, how they're going to get more stuff. It's just this rat race.
It's so funny. It's all external to us, because actually what we don't want to do is go internally and fix the things we don't like, fix the beliefs that we've got about ourselves that don't serve us anymore. But if we do that, we suddenly realize that we're so much less attached to the stuff on the outside, because that isn't really how anybody values us.
Yeah, it's so true. You know, one last comment I just want to add before we close out is I shared many times before that I started getting Botox when I was 26. I think I'm 59. And I haven't had it since a year ago, June. So normally I would go 3 times a year. So this 11 is driving me crazy. And I made an appointment. I'm supposed to go tomorrow, and it's not going to work out because of the things that are going on. And I've been saying to myself, can't you just run down there? And it's just not going to work out with the timing. So I thought, now I have to see myself with this 11 till I don't know when, you know, I'm not sure when. And I said to myself, is it really that bad? I mean, it's part of who you are. Like, you earned that. And I thought, well, I could get some bangs. Like, no, just deal with it. I've gone this long without it, but I think to myself how obsessed I was. I had to get it done every 3 times, sometimes 4 times a year, because, you know, you get this done and this done. And now I don't have any of it. And I say to myself, do I not love myself? Am I not, do I not have value anymore because I'm not having, you know, injections in my face? And the answer is, it's ridiculous.
Or is it that you value yourself in a different way? You know, I'm terrified of needles, so I've never had anything done, and I terrify people by telling them about my horrendous beauty regime, where I, you know, if I'm lucky, I'll get through a bottle of moisturizer every 3 years because I forget to put it on. And I'm nearly 50. But I've been very lucky. You know, I look at every one of my lines and wrinkles and go, but I earned them.
Yeah, you don't have any, Kim-Adele.
Is about, you know, about a memory, about a joy, about something that came up. And, you know, a lot of them might be about things that made me really sad. But I kind of look at it and think, well, and mine was through fear. Mine was through fear of needles, because I was like, I wouldn't go and do any of these things. But I guess you kind of look at it and go, we are who we are who we become, aren't we? And you're beautiful. So I wouldn't notice the 11. I think it's what we notice about ourselves, isn't it? We look at ourselves and see all the things that we see are lacking, instead of looking for all the things that we see that we're grateful for, that we go, I'm not perfect, but I've got nice eyelashes. They're kind of quite cool. Whatever it is, instead we'll look at it and go, oh my goodness, Kim, look at all the lines here, and you've not got a huge amount of makeup on, and you probably should cover those. But that's just our internal chatter. Other people aren't thinking the same thing, are they?
Well, I remember when I was 26, I had a friend who told me that my forehead looked like a railroad track. And that's why I first went. And I think I always hear that in the back of my mind. But just a quick segue, on my spin bike that I have behind this green screen, I will ride that several times during the week. And I bring my phone, put it on there. And I like to watch this reality TV show, which I'm not going to say who it is, but it involves housewives. And I look, and no one's face is moving. No one's neck has any lines. No hands have any lines. And yet they're still screaming at each other, right? They have more money than you can imagine. And everything's tight and taut. And they've got trainers and they've got cooks. But yet they're still yelling at each other, over talking one another, and just being disrespectful. And I think, you know what? I don't have any of that stress and I have any of that aggravation. Yeah, I've got some wrinkles and I'm going to love them. And thank you, Yvette. Yvette writes, learn to love your flaws. Absolutely.
I love that. And I love what you were saying about the reality TV program, because one of the things I'm trained to do is read micro expressions. But if you've had so much work done, your face doesn't move. So actually what happens is people no longer believe you in the same way, because even if you've not been trained to read micro expressions, you kind of know, don't you, if something's off. If somebody says something and you go, I'm not really sure that that's right. And that's because, irrelevant of our age, our race, our gender, our culture, we use the same combination of 43 muscles in our faces to demonstrate the same 7 human emotions. And when we don't see the emotion we expect with the words, we don't believe the person. And so we actually create a disconnection, which leaves people feeling so frustrated.
I love that you brought it all together. Thank you for doing that. This has been another fun show. We always have these really in-depth conversations. And Yvette, thank you for engaging with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you also, Kim-Adele, for putting the link to the Bob Newhart clip. So I will be checking that out later today.
Oh, well, I hope it makes you smile. It makes me smile, but actually it has got a poignant message as well. So as well as it being quite funny, for me, what I love is it's become a memory in my head. So now when I find myself doing it, I play that almost like a movie. I'm like, okay, yeah, best stop it.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I always liked Bob Newhart. I liked his sort of deadpan delivery of comedy. So, but we have to sign off. The Power of Etiquette and Manners is coming up right after this. Kim-Adele, what's the best way for people to reach you? And also, Yvette, we'd love to have you as a guest on the show. If anybody out there would like to join us, I'll put the link in the chat, but it's so easy. All you have to do is go over to usaglobaltv.com, and then you'll see book your session, and just look for Authentic Achievements and book in. We'd love to have you. Kim-Adele, what's the best way to contact you?
Yes, the best way is probably to just email me direct. It's kim@kimadelerandall.com, or you can get in touch at www.authenticachievements.com, and I'm on social media, most places, either as Kim-Adele Randall or Kim-Adele 10. So please do reach out. I'd love to hear your story. And as Dr. Jacqueline said, if you'd like to come and share your journey with us and how you've been able to achieve your authentic goals, we would love to have you here.
Thank you. And the great news is, like Yvette, comment, thank you, Yvette, please do come over and book in, is that you get to be on this platform, and then you can be on Kim-Adele's platform, which is Authentic Achievement. So you can get 2 interviews and different audiences. So we'd love to have you. But thanks again for engaging with us. All right, Kim-Adele, we're signing off. As I mentioned, the Power of Etiquette and Manners will be right here. Philip Sykes, who is the principal of the British School of Excellence, will be joining us. He is the host of the show along with me. So please do stay where you are. I'll run over to the other studio. And Kim-Adele, I hope you have a beautiful weekend.
And you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.